everybody. Welcome to Talking Heartland. This is the show where we're breaking up back episodes of the Heartland TV show. And today we were on season 14, episodes 4 through 6. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner. Michelle's here.
Hey, everyone.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited to talk about these ones.
Yeah, these were big episodes. We'll talk more about it, but some of the biggest production I think they've ever done.
Yeah, this first one is fantastic, and I'm really surprised that it was like one episode. When I was watching, I was like, "Oh, is this going to be like a 2-part episode?" But yeah, maybe they could only afford to do it over the one episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think this episode, Through the Smoke, it's called episode 4. I think it's the biggest episode as far as production that they've ever done.
Yeah.
The tornado one would be a close second.
There was also the one with it was like a bus crash with the horses, the Olympic horses. The Amy had to get the barbed wire off of the horses.
Oh yeah.
That I still don't think that was anywhere near what we got in this episode though.
Yeah, it was fun to get back to watching Heartland because we had a little bit of a break. We pre-recorded a whole bunch, so you all haven't had a break, but we've had a break about 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was sort of strange. It's part of my Friday routine is I work half a day, and when I come home from work I watch Heartland. So it's sort of weird to not watch for a few weeks.
Yeah, because you don't want to get it too far ahead, and then you won't be able to remember when we're talking.
I would have had to go back and rewatch them.
Yeah.
There's no way I would have remembered.
But did you have a good August?
I did. Yeah, it was fun. It's just not been my year health-wise, I would say. Especially this summer, it just feels like one thing after another.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of I'm taking the good days when I can. I'm suffering from a twist, like a back spasm today, which just sort of came out of nowhere, and I'm just like, what is happening with this summer? I've got nothing. I've really done nothing this summer because I've just been so ill. But yeah, I've got out to a few things and a few Comic Cons, and I've got a couple coming up towards the end of the year, so I've got things to look forward to.
Yeah, well, that's good at least. Yeah, well, I had a great trip out to California, out to LA, and I was there for 10 days, which is too long. It's too long of a trip. It had to be, but I that's a long time to be away, living out of a suitcase.
Yeah. And it sounded pretty intense, like getting everything ready so that like the podcast's all ready. And
that was challenging because I not only have this, but I also have Rachel's reviews, and so getting everything ready and getting everything ready for the patrons and all that is all took work.
Yeah, it was like a crazy amount of podcasts you recorded before you left.
Yeah, we're recorded, edited, made the graphics. It all takes time. But I'm really proud of everything we made. I think some really good stuff came out while I was gone. Let's talk about Heartland. So this episode, Through the Smoke, and basically there was the train crash in the last episode, and now there's this fire, and there is a train car that has chlorine in it, and if the fire gets to that, it will cause a huge chemical disaster. So it's a big problem, obviously, for Lou as the mayor. They're going to have to evacuate everybody. A lot of stuff going on. So what was your overall thought about this episode?
I thought it was excellent. I thought it was a really good, just like you said, in terms of the production was fantastic. I thought it was a really, big episode for Amy. A big stage of her grief, was dealt with in this episode. I also think it was probably Lou's best episodes since becoming mayor, which, we haven't seen much of her being the mayor, but I was a little concerned. So yeah, it was good in that regard. And I would say most of the characters had really fantastic moments throughout this episode.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably one of the strongest episodes ever in the show.
Hmm.
I mean, it just kept going, one
Yeah.
kind of big set piece after another, whether it was Amy and Lily with the horses, or everything going on with Tim
Hmm.
and the this tank, then Lou and Peter and Jack looking for Parker. There's just all of it worked, I think.
Yeah. I was sort of surprised when the episode started, because I just expected this season to be kind of more intimate and smaller, just because they are filming. This was the height of, the COVID filming. So
Mm.
yeah, this was completely unexpected that they were able to do this and have so many extras on set, and keep everybody safe. It was quite a big accomplishment.
Yeah, and I think that it was a smart move as far as the story of this season, because it gets people immediately kind of talking about other stuff besides Ty being gone.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just trying to be kind of as big as possible so that people aren't as angry. I don't
Hmm.
know if it worked, but I think that was the idea, to try
Yeah,
to
no, I would agree
change
with
the
that.
subject.
Yeah. Yes, that's the thing. They have to. It's such a difficult balance to strike, because you have to honor the character, that's no longer here, that was such a massive part of everybody's lives. But you also have to keep your audience engaged and not
Yeah.
have them, you know, they are watching weekly. We are sort of doing this binge watching, so it would probably affect us a little bit more of just seeing constant, people going through stages of grief, and that's, pretty tough
Yeah.
to sit
Yeah,
through,
this
sort of.
gets people talking about other stuff,
Yeah.
involved in
Hmm.
other stuff. It's trying at least as hard as they can to do that.
Hmm.
So we have this crash, and then Amy goes to help the horses, of course. And then Lily is there and helps Amy. And Amy says, "You focus on your job and I'll do mine." And basically, Amy is very upset about everything that's happening with Howler and trying to get these horses to the creek.
Hmm.
And people say, you've got to think about Lindy now because you're all she has.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's such a big thing for Amy to sort of get her head around.
Yeah.
That she is, this little person's, she's all she's got now. That's, and I imagine it's bringing up a lot of losing her own mother. Um, so yeah, it was a big episode for Amy.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, and then Tim ends up joining them, trying to take the horses to the creek. Um, and Lily gets stuck. Um, and so Amy has to help her. Um, and then they have a moment where Amy says, "I know you didn't choose to be away." So she says she's sorry. And Lily says, "I'm angry at how unfair it all is that we lost him."
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's the main thing of just how unfair all of it is.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think it's always such a tragedy when a child passes away before the parents. It's
Ugh,
always
yeah,
just so sad.
yeah, it never should happen.
Hmm. So Lily talks to Tim, and she says she's doing the 12 steps, making amends part. And
Hmm.
she says, "You did them too. What do I do next?" And she says, "I've got to leave Wade. It'll be tough, but you're tough as they come." So that was a nice moment,
Yeah,
because, we're hard on Tim, but he does have his moments.
does have his moments, and I think we saw it with a little bit with Caleb, a few seasons back, and hearing again with Lily. He is very sympathetic when it comes to addiction and how it affects people, because he went through it.
Mm.
Um, and I think it does him well to be reminded of everything that he's accomplished since coming back.
Yeah. So then we also have Parker getting lost. She's trying to find Mickey, who got spooked. and she gets lost, and Jack is searching for her. Finally, he finds her, and she insists on getting the horses and helping the horses. And she feels really bad about Mickey, and she says that her parents want to stay as far away from her as possible. She said nobody loves her, which is sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand these. We saw it a lot with Mallory, of just the parents being so happy just to leave their child for such long periods of time. It makes no sense. And we
Right.
don't even like, we saw little glimpses of Mallory's parents here and there, but all we've seen is Jade's. And she's even gone from these episodes. So yeah, it seems a little strange that the parents are okay with leaving their child with people that they've never met before.
Yeah, definitely. And Jack says, "Why did I come looking for you? And why was I scared of my wits when I couldn't find you?"
Mhm.
So that was sweet. But yeah, I mean, it's like I've said, that it's similar to with the Cosby Show, where they were always inventing
Yeah, they just have to get a kid with them.
ridiculous, ridiculous reasons for Sandra and Denise to still be at the house, because they had to have kids to interact with. And it's the same with this. They have to just come up with these reasons, these convoluted reasons why there has to be this child character, for Jack, even
Yeah.
though they have Katie.
Yeah, I was gonna say Katie's right there.
But I guess they wanted Parker. And how do you
Mhm.
feel? Do you think Parker's cute? A good addition to the cast?
I think they've struck a right. Sorry, I think they've struck a very good balance with her being precocious but not over the top. And they've also sort of have her had these sort of different interests and different goals, so that she's not too similar to Mallory, which I think is probably the most, you know, the similarities are quite striking.
Yeah.
But yeah, they definitely have given her little differences here and there. It'll be interesting to see what they do with her in the future, because it is strange that she is so against horses and riding horses. So it'll be interesting to see if she comes back, and when she comes back, that will be something that she's actually open to.
Yeah, I mean, she seems to at least have a bond with Mickey.
Hmm.
So there's that. But yeah, she definitely is more like Mallory than she is like Georgie.
Yeah, and even Luke, it was,
Hmm.
a little different.
Yeah, I kind of wish they'd kept Luke. I don't know.
Mhm.
I wish I knew why. There's probably some reason, but I liked him. He was a great character. But yes, so uh, we have Rick helping Lou with the emergency, and he says, your job is to reassure everybody and to help with the help people evacuate the town.
Mhm.
Um, they suggest they can use this reciprocity cruise. They're from Middleton Oil, but I guess they're very expensive. So Rick
Yeah.
doesn't suggest doing that, and Peter finally says, like, we elected you, Mayor, not Rick.
Hmm.
He's really directing everything.
Yeah, it was nice to sort of see Rick by the end sort of be on Lou's side, because I've been so confused over what his deal is. Like, why
Hmm.
is he so unhelpful when it comes to Lou, or passive aggressive?
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if it's for comedic effect, or I don't know. Like, I'm definitely not picking up on what the intention was there, but it was nice by the end to have him sort of be on Lou's side, um, as he is her assistant. Um, and it would be good to know if he is sort of jaded over, it seems like he's been doing this job for a long time. Um, and maybe he's become a little bit jaded over time.
Yeah, I felt that too, and I wonder how long he's had this job.
Mm.
because he seems to know how to do everything with
Yeah,
it.
I'm like, you be the mayor, buddy.
Yeah. I'm like, why didn't you run? But she worries at first that her initial call for evacuation was too relaxed. But they're worried about like causing panic. But I feel like, can you really be that relaxed when calling for an evacuation? I feel like that's pretty intense on its own.
Yeah. And considering like this would cause, extreme illness and, I think they said there would be, a gas over the whole town, it would, be a catastrophe. Like,
Hmm.
I think that calls for some urgency.
Yeah, I mean, and I wasn't sure why they couldn't just move the tank
Mm,
away from the fire. That seems like that would be a good, you know what I
yeah,
mean? A good
yeah,
solution. Just get like a forklift or whatever and move it, or tow
yeah. I
truck
think
or
the problem was
something.
they couldn't actually put out the fire. Like, they just didn't have um,
Right.
fire.
So that's why I'm saying, instead of worrying about the fire, move the tank
Mhm.
away from the fire.
Yeah, maybe they should have had somebody, Tim, jump in and suggest that.
Yeah.
Tell everybody how to do it.
That would make the most sense to me. And then you can take the longer approach to because that seemed to be the biggest problem. And so if you got like a tow truck of some kind or a semi that could take that kind of load, and just move it. Maybe I should be a mayor
Yeah,
of Hudson.
maybe you should be a mayor.
But Peter was great in this episode, very supportive, kind of
Mhm.
ideal ex-husband behavior
I'm
going on.
very like suspicious of what's going on with Peter.
Yeah, I
Like,
kind of wondered that. They have to have a hug in this episode. I'm like, are they
yeah,
trying?
oh my God, if they do it again, I they do
Like,
not have to put us through this again.
well, clearly they didn't have Kevin McGarry for very much in this
Hmm.
season, only for a couple episodes. But yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think they're doing it again to us, Rachel.
No, no. Like, I mean, we never really liked Peter and Lou to begin with.
Yeah, Peter's at his best when he's divorced from Lou. Like,
If only they
Dad
had
Peter is
kept
just the best.
if only they had kept stay-at-home dad Peter. That was the
Hmm.
best version of Peter. Can all
Hmm.
agree.
Yeah,
And then they had to mess it up. They just
yeah.
can't seem to get Lou's love life right. It just doesn't
No.
seem to ever work.
Yeah, and if I'm right, like Kevin McGarry, he's like fully on when he calls the heart now, isn't he? At the time of filming this,
What's that?
Kevin McGarry, he's like fully on when calls the heart around the time.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So he's busy making like a dozen Hallmark movies.
Right. Yeah, it was 2019. He was in something like 5 Christmas movies that year. It was
Mm,
intense. But and of course this was after that, but he produces a lot of content. And then we have, like I said, more between Amy and Lily. Then Amy sees Ty in the distance helping direct her, which I do appreciate that Graham did the ghost shoots so that there could be more closure
mhm.
throughout the whole season. That's something that a lot of shows don't have, and I appreciate that he did that.
Yeah, a lot of shows it's just like they're gone and they have to try and because the actor is unavailable, so they can't do flashbacks, they can't do all of these things that would help
Hmm.
the audience sort of work through it. It is nice that he is still connected with the show in that regard.
Hmm.
And it is nice also like going on to like Amber Marshall's, Instagram stories and seeing that they're still very close.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, he's still very much connected with the show, which is nice.
yeah. And then we have Jack telling Parker, "I'll forgive you if you forgive me. It had nothing to do with solar panels." And he says you also might want to clear the air with your parents too.
Mhm.
And then Amy says, I'm not risking my life anymore. I'm risking Lindy,
Yeah.
which is true. I mean, it's just as important as horses are to her, it's still not as important as her daughter. And she just, I think, needs to get a little bit of perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Amy, found a cause in this episode, and it gave her a
Hmm.
little bit of purpose, and it was hard for her to sort of see outside of that. So it was nice by the end that she sort of came a little bit full circle there.
Yeah. And Jack says, you saved those horses today because that's who you are. Which is true. I mean, that's just who she is as a person. She just can't let a horse go.
Yeah, and it is true. If Ty was there, he would have done exactly the same thing. So
Yeah. And he says we need a win every now and then, don't we? That was sweet.
yeah.
Yeah. So then, like I said, Lily talks to Tim about 12 steps, making amends. And then Lily says, I've got to leave Wade. So that is a big step.
Yeah, and hopefully she does.
Yeah, finally. I mean, he's the last we heard from him was him not paying attention to the advice on the horse. Remember?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah. Forget which horse that was. The Howler?
that was Howler, yeah.
Yeah, Howler. And so yes, and then Tim says it'll be tough, but you're tough as they come. And then we get a conversation between Amy and Lou. She says, no good time to admit I've been a terrible sister to you because I didn't know how to deal with everything. And that's when Lou tells Amy about her engagement to Mitch. And the thing is that I wouldn't think that that would be particularly triggering, that I'm because yes, Amy lost her husband, but I would think something like if she had been left at the altar or something particularly more with weddings or marriage, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Would be more triggering than uh, for Amy as far as her grief.
Yeah, and I also think it doesn't quite work because Mitch isn't there, so it's not like she's watching two like happily in love people.
Hmm.
Which I would understand that perspective a little bit more. If she found that very difficult to see.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I would understand it more if Mitch was around and it was very much more in her face.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like Lou's sort of, she's not helping herself. She's sort of making it more of a thing than it probably actually is. There could have been.
Yeah. So what would you give this episode 1 to 10?
I would give this a 10. It was just
Yeah.
a really great episode.
I agree. It was a very good episode. It kept going. It was very exciting. There was just no dead time at all in this one.
Hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hello. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Katie, and we have a podcast called
One kiss means forever. Do you love made-for-TV rom-coms?
Are you obsessed with Hallmark and all the Hallmark-inspired copycats that have come out on other platforms like Netflix?
And while being obsessed, do you know that these are not what one might call quality films?
If so, come listen to our podcast. Each episode, we discuss one movie that did not have a theatrical release and always ends in a happily ever after.
And how do we know it will end in a happily ever after?
Because one kiss means forever, of course.
So join us as we deep dive into each movie for about 45 minutes.
Episodes drop every other Thursday, except during the very elongated Hallmark Christmas season when we join the Christmas craze and go weekly for about 2.5 months. Bye!
Bye!
All right. Well, the next episode is called Outsiders. And it's the wild black stallion that Amy rehomed from Will's ranch is brutally forced out of the herd by the new leader, leaving Amy to track down the injured horse and nurse him back to health. So this was a more simple episode than the previous one,
Yeah.
which in a way was kind of refreshing.
Yeah, it was sort of nice to check in with everybody after such an
Mhm.
intense episode, because there was a lot of character development there, but it was nice for things to sort of slow down again.
Yeah, we also have this woman, Jessica Cook, at the Jude Ranch, and she is actually going to be a regular coming
Mhm.
up. I noticed that she's in a bunch of episodes, so she's not going away.
Yeah, she's Tim's new love interest.
Mhm. What do you think? So she is Lou's boss who fired her because she was away so long dealing with her mom's passing. And Lou is very angry with her. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. I mean, I do think that they cast the role really well. I feel like Michelle Nolan has good chemistry with Michelle Morgan.
Mhm.
And she also has good chemistry with Chris Potter. So I feel like they cast it really well, which was probably the key here. But yeah,
Mhm.
it is interesting to sort of see a character that's come from the same world as Lou, and to see how much Lou holds on to that sort of resentment. So yeah, it was an interesting plot that sort of worked for me in the end.
Mhm. Yeah, she apologizes and she says, "I'm a little haunted by the cutthroat businesswoman I used to be."
Hmm.
I mean, in a way, though, I kind of understand her point because if Lou was up for a long time, I mean, you need somebody to be doing that job.
Yeah, yeah, and you have to sort of think back to those early seasons, and she was gone a long time,
Yeah.
and made sort of no effort to go back. She was just constantly finding reasons to stay, and whether that was intentional or not, she clearly just didn't want to go back to New York at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that would have left Jessica no choice.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've all seen enough law shows to know that you have to be cutthroat in order to survive in that world.
Right. Well, we've seen enough Hallmark movies where they need to go
Yeah,
to
yeah,
this country. At the beginning, we have Amy getting thrown from Spartan because these wild horses are so upset.
yeah,
So that was
yeah.
surprising.
Yeah, they did such a good job with the fight.
Hmm.
It looked really real. I was like, oh
Yeah.
god.
And it made me think back to our interview with Amber, where she was saying that how they have particular horses to, some to buck, some to,
Hmm.
do these different things. And I was just thinking, oh, they got a bucking horse there.
Like an expert now.
Yeah, I do. I feel like. Uh, and we get some flashbacks in this episode, like we have with Amy and Ty with the wild horse
Hmm.
from season 8 on there, and then we have Amy working with this horse Boo, and she lassos Boo and treats his wounds. And they're trying to figure out a problem because the fire crews were so expensive that they can't have the rodeo anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they decide that they want to have a fundraising event, and they find out that neighbor Sam, has uh, a baseball field in his yard.
Hmm.
So they ask him if they can have the fundraising, the charity baseball tournament. The thing about this charity baseball tournament, they claim that it makes $14,000, is I think
There
what
was
they
not enough
say.
people there for that, Rachel. There was
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
There was like 30 people there. And I know they
Yeah.
filmed during COVID, they couldn't have like a huge crowd of people, but that number was insane.
Yeah. There were like a couple money bags people that were that you probably could just have had them ask for donation and don't even need to have the event. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, the hero always finds a way to save the day.
Yeah. I mean,
In
at least
Heartland.
they sort of like donated half, well, him and Sam sort of shared the other half.
Mhm.
Because yeah, if they were like, this raised 20 grand, I was like, yeah, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. So we find out that Jessica evidently is a pretty good player. But then
Mhm.
Sam comes, he plays, he hits a home run, they win. And then they also, Sam and Tim decide to split the shortfall for the rodeo. And so everything is funded.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm
And
curious as of like what they're going to do with Sam, because they keep sort of bringing him in,
yeah,
very occasionally. So I'm curious that, because he's sort of well known to Hallmark viewers, so they must have a plan for him, whether it's him to go into business with Tim in some way, or they must have a plan.
yeah, it's true. When you get someone like Sean Roberts,
Mhm.
you want to do something with him. But it's too bad they can't make him a love interest for Lou.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it.
um, but yeah, evidently he's doing still very wealthy, even though he evidently had a fairly brief professional baseball career. It is very rich.
Mhm.
And evidently Tim is all of a sudden super rich, even though he lives out of a trailer.
Well, he has all of his money that he got from Sam for selling so he's no excuse to live in that. I think it's just to
Mhm.
annoy Jack at this point.
Also, I wonder, why is this rodeo so expensive? I mean, if they raised $14,000 and then there's more of a
Shortfall.
shortfall to cover, I mean, it just
I mean,
doesn't
it
seem
feels
like they would be that expensive. You pay the talent, you give the reward money. I mean, you've got the stadium already there. It's, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah, it was damage that was done during the
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. That's
yeah,
true.
apparently. We don't
Mm,
see the damage either, so we don't know how extensive it is. So
mm, that's true. And so then Amy is able to keep working with Boo, and she ends up giving Boo to Sam. And we also have Parker leaving in this episode. So I don't know how long she's gone for, but
I'm pretty sure she comes back at some point.
yeah.
I mean, she's in like the cast picture for the season, so it feels like
Mhm.
she's going to be around more.
Yeah. And we get a nice scene between Amy and Jack. And she says, Grandpa, when will I stop dreaming of Ty and seeing his face everywhere? And he says, those dreams will stop haunting you and become a comfort to you. So that is a nice moment.
Yeah.
So what would you give this episode 1 to 10?
I'd probably give it like a 7.5 or an 8.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So then the last episode is called The New Normal. A group of wild horses need new homes. Amy must get back to her Miracle Girl roots and host her first horse clinic in over a year. So overall, what do you think of this one?
It was interesting. It was nice to sort of see Mitch back. It was nice to see Clint back. So yeah, there was some good moments throughout. Um, Again, I'm just very suspicious about what is happening with Peter. I'm so on edge. Um, and I really like um Jessica in this episode. I feel like she's such a well-rounded character, and she's a good match for Tim. They have a really good dynamic.
Yeah, and I wonder what they're doing with this Cooper character, because he's in a bunch coming
Yeah, he's
up.
in a bunch coming up. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if he's supposed to be a love interest for somebody or what we're going to see with him, but he's
Yeah,
looking for horses.
my suspicion is that Amy's going to end up working at his facility.
Do you think that he's the new love interest for Amy eventually?
I feel like they might do what some shows have done in the past, is sort of introduce characters and just sort of leave them there for a while, and then do the sort of love interest thing with
Mm-hmm.
people. I feel like they're testing the waters with a few characters, and I think they are aware that it's way too soon for that.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the time jump and things like that, it is way too soon. So yeah, I feel like it would be way too soon for them to and this poor guy probably is not having a fun time on social media if that was the case.
Yeah. So then we have these 5 horses that are pushed out of the herd. So Amy's trying to work with them. And that was interesting that I guess that's a phenomenon that happens with this wild.
Yeah, because you imagine that the herd keeps growing.
Mhm.
So yeah, it makes sense that, the older ones would eventually sort of be pushed out, or the younger ones. But yeah, it is interesting that the herd has gotten so big that 5 are pushed out and the
Mhm.
herd is still kind of big.
Yeah. And it's almost like they've become a bit of a pest, just a little, like the way at the beginning when Tim has there by his trailer and he's like, shoo, shoo, shoo away.
Yeah, yeah. It
So,
feels like it's a big job that Amy sort of took on. It's not
mhm.
just a herd of horses, on her land. It's, this could happen again in like 5 years of like a bunch more horses get pushed out as the herd keeps growing.
Yeah. And so they decide they need to do a clinic. And Amy is nervous about that. And Jack says to me, you're my Amy. To them, you're the miracle girl. Forget about the people, the horses, they need you. So that is, it's interesting because I feel like, I mean, you have people at the clinic that are all talking, oh, so sad what happened to her and everything. And I feel like most people would probably not say that, like within earshot.
Not within earshot.
Fair
Definitely not.
is my guess.
And it would have been, I think a more sort of creative choice, or a more sort of artistic choice, to have it all be in Amy's head, of the voices all being in Amy's head, as opposed to people actually seeing things, right next to her within earshot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so Mitch talks to Lou and about, they talk about wedding decisions, and he's like, I don't really care. You do what you like. And she's freaking out about that because that's what he did with Maya when the wedding didn't happen. But I genuinely think that most guys don't care about,
Yeah, they just want to know
yeah,
when to show up.
like they're just like, it's a party, a party's a party. And they might have like a few little things that they might want, like a particular kind of cake or something like that, or maybe a particular tux that they want over another one. But for the most part, at least the guys that I know, they do not care about that kind of
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah, just yeah, I do feel like it is just a case of him, like you say, just wanting to know where to be at what
Mm-hmm.
time, and
Yeah.
he's happy.
And especially actually if things didn't work out with the wedding with Maya, he might be even less inclined to be involved,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, I'm just a little bit like, how is this going to work? Because they clearly can't have Kevin McGardy on the show as much as they have had.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
hard to have that not kind of affect it because I'm pretty sure he's not on the next season. And
Hmm.
so you know that things aren't going to end well for Lou and Mitch.
Yeah, yeah, and they can't just have him on, a screen on a phone or a laptop all season. It just can't happen like that.
And we also have Fred Garland. He calls and they want Jack to come to grocery convention. And if you remember Fred, this grocery convention must be like the best day of his life.
Yeah, he's like living for this.
Yeah.
He's probably created this whole thing just so he could have a convention.
Yeah, and Lisa is like loving it, loving the
Yeah.
hotel, and
Yeah, I
Jack
know
is
she would.
just so grumpy.
Yeah.
I'm with Lisa. I love a hotel. A
Yeah, I love
fancy
a hotel. Even if
Yeah.
it's not a fancy hotel, I like a hotel.
Yeah. Me too. It was fun. I'm trying to remember which one that one of the recent Hallmark movies, Journey Ahead, had Lisa on there,
Yeah.
which was fun.
That was so fun. It's so funny to see her outside of the of the Heartland world, even though she's been in
Yeah.
so many of these movies. So when I, randomly watch one on TV and she shows up, I'm just like, oh my God, Lisa! Like in my head, she's just Lisa at this point.
Yeah. Jessica Steen. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I have the same thing because I don't feel like she has that many, but like enough that you see her and you're like, oh my gosh, that's Heartland. So they have the clinic, and this horse Shadow is difficult in the clinic. Is nervous, and it's disappointing for Amy. She calls it off, and then Lou and Amy have a big fight.
Yeah. I'm not loving this sort of ongoing thing between Lou and Amy because it doesn't feel, like you say, it doesn't feel very sort of authentic. It doesn't feel like it should be as big of an issue as it is. I really hope that this is the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes Lou feel more unlikable, and that's something we don't need, more of Lou being unlikable. She needs more likable scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like she's making such a big deal of it. It's not helping.
And Amy says that you're not being real, you're not being normal, and life isn't fair, but it's the only one we've got.
Yeah, and I think we're to understand that Lou wasn't super there for Amy during, the loss of Ty. That she couldn't really talk to Amy about it. That she just sort of focused on her new job and being the mayor. So yeah, it's understandable that Amy is holding on to a little bit of resentment there, but yeah, still, it's a storyline that I hope has ended with this episode because it's not fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Caleb, though, is just the best in this episode.
Yeah,
he's really
he's like the
funny.
best dad. Yeah.
He's got his kid, which I forget the name. Carson, I think.
My gosh. Yeah, Carson, yeah.
And so he's got his baby, and then he's watching Lindy and Katie, and he's just super cute with the kids.
Yeah, and it sounds like he's having to sort of step up and be a bit of a stay-at-home dad while Carson's gotten a promotion, it sounds like. So yeah, it really suits him as well.
Well, it makes sense because with Ty gone, she's gonna be taking over more of the load.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he's just so good. And his scenes with Peter were really great as well.
Yeah. So I was going to say that, and he says, nothing seems to bug you. And Peter kind of laughs and he's like, parenting is a lesson in patience, which is very true. And then I think it's Jack. He says, you're a good dad because you're trying, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. There was a movie out this year, I think it's I Want You Back. I don't know if you got to see it yet. And there's this friendship that develops between Jenny Slate's character and this little boy that she's helping out with the school play. And she basically tells him, she's like, here's the thing about it, grown-ups. He's just like, we're just making it up every day.
Mhm.
Which
Yeah.
is true. When you're a kid, you think that your parents know everything and that they have it all figured out, and you slowly start to realize, nope, they have no idea what they're
Yeah, yeah.
doing.
I think we all get that point in life. Like
Yeah.
your parents have the answer to everything, and then you get a bit older and you realize that they're just people. They're just
Yeah.
people. They don't have the answers to everything.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you realize that, oh my gosh, they're the same. They were parents the same age as I am now, that
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
what? How's that possible? But we're all just trying the best that we can. And Lisa has a conversation with Jack because he's all like being friendly and flirty and whatever with the people at the hotel. She says, why do strangers get the happy Jack? And he says, it's easy to be happy when you're playing a part.
Hmm.
And then she says, it's not sustainable to be the rock all the time. And that is true, that there are certain people, I think, in every family that are kind of the rocks that everybody kind of leans on. And
Hmm.
you always sort of worry that, okay, are we overdoing it? Is it gonna pop? Like you can only do that so long.
Yeah, that's true. And it must be so hard for Jack because every time he's in Heartland, like Ty's memory is so entrenched in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was affected by his death. For everybody, it was, the loss of a husband, the loss of a brother, the loss of a son, the loss of a friend. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it must be so hard for Jack because, again, yeah, he is the person that everybody goes to for answers.
Yeah. And Amy says, I caught myself laughing today for 1 second. I forgot about all the hard stuff and I didn't think about Ty, and I feel guilty about that. And Jack says, don't take anything for granted. Enjoy every single moment. Ty would want that. You're allowed to be happy.
Hmm.
So that'll bring on the feels right there.
Yeah,
We also have Katie not liking Mitch.
this feels so random because she loved Mitch a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah. And it was a brutal moment when she says, dads don't always stick around. Lindy doesn't have a dad. You need to promise me you won't go away.
Yeah, yeah. I feel
That's
like they
brutal.
sort of, yeah, it's brutal. I also feel like they use Mitch to sort of get to that moment, um, which is fine. Because yeah, it must be hard for a child to sort of understand, you know, Ty's death and
Yeah.
how that's affected everyone.
Well, and also I feel like it's unusual for a family
Hmm.
to have so much contact between ex-spouses. I mean, you
Yeah.
should be civil and kind and
Hmm.
supportive, but he's over there a lot.
Yeah, this is the most we've seen of Peter in such a long time, which again raises my suspicions.
which would be conflicting for Katie
Yeah,
to be seeing her
it's also
dad so much with her
uh,
mom.
it's also conflicting of when they were married that he was never there,
Yeah.
and that's why their marriage didn't work. They're divorced and he's constantly there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So Cooper wants all 5 of the wild horses, and he wants to work with Amy.
Hmm.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That is my
Yeah.
suspicion. Well, sort of that'll get her back into horse work, working at this. Because they don't have the wildlife reserve anymore, so it would make sense that they have a different facility.
Right. And then Tim and Jack, they say, we are getting our Amy back. So that was very sweet.
Hmm.
Hmm. So what would you give this episode, 1 to 10?
Yeah, again, I would say this is a really solid episode. So yeah, 7.5 for me.
Yeah, I think I like it a little better than the last one. So I'd probably give it an 8, I think. So there we go. Well, let us know what you think of these 3 episodes. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. And Michelle, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Michelle R. Benson.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Make sure you check out our Heartland playlist where we have all of our interviews with Amber Marshall, with River, with Carrie, who plays Caleb. We've got all those interviews, Michelle Morgan. And so definitely take a listen to those interviews and our other episodes and recaps. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That helps us so much. And if you are listening on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have the Patreon group and merch store. Check that out. And thanks, everybody. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.